Now the Arch Manning era has begun here at UT. What are the realistic expectations for the 2025 season?
So think about what was missing going into this year. I mean, you're like a wholesale change of receivers, you know, when X and A.D. Mitchell and Jay Witt, and they replaced him. It's hard to replace that trio, but what I contend is Sark is always going to have his, if not his pick, he's going to have an elite five-star type of quarterback throwing to elite talent with elite guys in the backfield. Like, people want to come and play in his offense.
Sure.
He's sitting on the #1 recruiting class right now, right? Mm-hmm. He's stacked top fives before that, and they have developed him. I think they're to this point. I'm not saying pencil them in for another semifinal. A lot of things have to go right. They did have a pretty easy walk in the SEC, but just if you're just being in general, and we've talked about this before, UT is in a great spot with Sark. He's a buttoned up, highly organized, smart. He has this culture. He's very transparent with the guys. They love him. They play for him. And Texas has a ton of money in the NIL era. Like, Texas is going to be fine. Texas is going to be fine. And the potential for Arch to do big things is there.
And one of the things that you had mentioned, I'm going a little bit off topic here, but you were talking in regard, to Arch coming in and that sort of thing. Let's not lose sight of the fact you had talked about, how a lot of things laid out this year, like with the schedule and that sort of thing, with everything that Texas had coming back personnel-wise, and then the things that they couldn't control. You talked about the soft-ish schedule. Mm-hmm. Look at how these things lined up even in the postseason. You get a semifinal game, essentially a home game, for a chance to go to the national championship game to take on not big bad Georgia because their quarterback got hurt, probably,
right.
And instead you're getting Notre Dame. Texas would have been a solid favorite in that. So all of that to say, a lot of things lined up, and it didn't happen this year.
Right.
And now I don't care, I don't care how good or how hyped up Arch Manning is. He might be the next great Manning that we're talking about. I'm just saying that you do, in a way, mentally as a fan, you kind of step back to that square one. Now we have all these questions that we answered before this season to get to this point. Now we have to start answering them again.
And while I never worry about all the skills and the QB, I always worry about the trench.
Right.
That O-line is
you're losing all of it.
Yeah.
If you didn't bring it up, I was going to. Because, you lose both tackles. You're going to lose your center. You have a guard commit to the draft. You're replacing 4 linemen.
Oh, man.
That's tough for any coach to have to turn around. And is Arch going to be running around for his life? That's going to be my big question next year.
No doubt. And that's where his mobility is really going to help because, I don't think he's going to have the same the cleanish pockets that Quinn would see. Obviously, wasn't clean all the time. But, you lose a Kelvin Banks. You lose Cam Williams. You lose Hayden Connor. You lose Jake Majors. A center, it's the same principle with a third-year starting quarterback. A guy, Sark would always joke, Jake, what is he, 38, 39 years old? I mean, he's been there forever at that important position, the captain of the line.
We've actually seen this within the last 10 or so years. There was a previous time you talk about how important centers are. I think it was the year that they lost David Ash, and to a concussion or whatever, he couldn't get healthy, couldn't come back at quarterback. But then they lose our kid from Cedar Park, Dom Espinosa, at center. Yep. Of course, everyone's paying attention to the fact that we lost David, or that Texas loses David Ash. And you're like, oh, yeah, we lost the center, too. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You're talking about 40 starter, 40 starts at center?
Yeah,
it matters. And in those cases, sometimes that, losing an experienced center like that is just as much, is as important as losing a quarterback.
More cause for concern. So a couple years ago, we talked about the secondary being the weakness, right? And that changed because we got Makuba come in, we have Jade come in. Well, but both those guys are gone now. So that's, again, are we going to look at the secondary as a potential weakness on next year's team? That's going to be another question mark for me. Also, too, the turnover at the wide receiver position is going to be the same. Matthew Golden potentially for the draft, Bond for the draft. So now a guy like Wingo really has to step up this coming year. And you have a couple of talented 5-star recruits coming in, Khalil Locke and Jamie French, but are those guys going to be immediately starters day one? History has said otherwise with Sark, so that is going to be one of the big things going into, again, Arch is going to have a new offensive line. He's going to have a whole new cast of wide receivers, and his defense might not be necessarily as good as it was this year because this year's defense was a dominating one at that.
And as far as running backs go, C.J. Baxter is coming back, but you never know. I mean, anytime you have a season-long injury, you know, you hope he comes back as good, but that's a question mark too.
And Trey showed good things, but now it's like, okay, they lost the Thunder at the beginning of this season. Well, now you just lost the Lightning and Jaden Blue, who, you know, God, I know he was.
And on the defensive side of the ball, you're talking about Michael Taft. Who knows if he comes back? And, I know that people, for whatever reason, we continue to sometimes we continue to slight Michael Taft, but the guy's a starter. He was an All-American. You're losing that type of leadership. Potentially, I should say, we don't know yet. Potentially lose that type of leadership and that type of love for this team and this sport. I'm telling you, don't sell that short if he ends up leaving.
That'll be one of my eternal memories from that game, is in the tunnel on the way out. And if you're watching us, you probably have seen that video of Taft just primal screaming. You know, it means so much to be pointed out. I'm a fifth generation Longhorn. This is everything. And so when I'm asking him about, like, I mean, are you coming back? That's a moving part. He hadn't even thought about it. I mean, that guy has been all in on this. And maybe it's like a Jahdae Barron situation for him. Like, he finds out, oh, I could either go in the 4th or 5th round this year, but that little scout sheet comes back, tells you exactly what they need to see from you. Jahdae turned it into probably a first-round pick.
Sure. Well, the road to next year's season goes through the team that just literally knocked you out of the playoffs. Because week 1, we're already talking about going to Columbus, Ohio State, Julian Sands, his name is my name too, going against Arch Manning. So that's going to be a fun, big-time matchup. But this schedule in general, it lines up a lot tougher than last year's schedule. Yeah. They literally don't play in DKR the entire month of October. Now, the first part of the schedule, okay, you get your San Jose States in there, you knock them off. Sam Houston, a better undercard, mid-card team than expected. No. Hey, they had some things this year, right? I mean, Texas State, we'll talk to you about that one. Anyway, but they also get Oklahoma or Florida on the road. DJ Lagway, we missed him this year, but we'll get him next year. Yep. And that team, they went from Billy Napier's gone. They finished the season 7-5. I believe they won their bowl game, if not mistaken, too. They ended the season a lot better than they started the season. So this schedule is shaping up a lot tougher than this year.
And I think that this schedule, and it's really the same teams. You just flip flop who's at home and who's on the road. But Julian's right. With what those teams did this year, it does look a lot more difficult going into
another year of Mike Alco too, right? So Texas A&M might be better too, and you get that stretch where you literally go at Georgia and then Arkansas and A&M to end the year too. So you could be beaten up by the end of the season potentially facing that schedule.
I just think it's crazy that Arch Manning's first real start as the guy is going to be up there against that team.
I think didn't Colt McCoy at least get? Didn't he get it like a home date against North Texas?
Oh,
sorry, Mean Green. Yeah, didn't he at least get a North Texas home game before he got number 1 Ohio State here?
Yeah, I think that was.
Manning jumps right into it. So yeah.
No, and it will be a tiebreaker now because now Ohio State's got that 2-2 matchup going against it.
Right. They've all been good too. Well, there was one that got a little sideways.
Yeah, there was the 1 versus 2. Yeah, Ohio State's like 24-7.
What do you think they're ranked to start next year?
3, 4.
3.
Just off the top of my head, just knowing that it's Texas.
Do you think Georgia will get the benefit of the doubt of them in the rankings?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think after a while you just, you're a 2-time returning national semifinalist that without knowing at all what Sark is going to get in the portal. We already know what he's got coming, what he has right here. They're going to be talented. They're going to be, I'm curious of how much staff, he's been able to retain staff.
That was the one thing that I was wanting to ask, that I was wanting to mention a minute ago. You talk about, all the things that we knew about this season coming in, how much Texas had coming back. Yeah. One of the things, don't sell this short, folks, 4 or so years of having the same coaching staff, you have to think eventually. Sorry, I whacked it. Yeah. You have to think eventually that someone out there is going to kick the tires on Pete Kwiatkowski.
Without a doubt.
Whether it's a head coach, whether it's a head coaching position at the college level, which he said he's happy being an assistant, What about what if one of these NFL jobs comes calling?
That was Dabo Swinney's downfall, right? He lost both his coordinators and suddenly Clemson went through some lean years there.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're hoping the lean years don't start as, again, the Arch era is beginning.
For the day ones, the diehards, the first timers, the old timers, for all the rivalry matches, buzzer beaters, and come from behind miracles. It's not just stats and wins and losses, it's the moments, the shots you can't believe went in, the times you can't do anything but believe. And it's all streaming right here on your connected TV anytime on Fox Local.
The Sports Office, streaming anytime on Fox Local.